Before we begin the program, here's a few notes. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. TechGrow Financial and Cambridge Investment Research, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions.
What will you do when your money works for you? Welcome to the TechGrow Financial Podcast with your hosts, Victor and Kim Gaxiola. From the home office in California, here is Victor and Kim.
So welcome back to the TechGrow Financial Podcast. I'm so excited about today's show. We've got a very special guest, and I just want to get right into it. Right, Kim?
Yeah.
So we have Ed Ortega. He's a co-founder of Machine and Partners, AI Consulting. This is a topic which has raised so much interest in the last couple of years. Ed, welcome to the program.
Victor, Kim, thank you for having me. I'm really delighted to be here and excited to talk about AI and the future and maybe a little bit of the past.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is, like I said, a subject that drives a lot of interest, especially for those that work in the tech space. But even people in their day-to-day lives are starting to ask a lot of questions about AI. And so what I'd love to be able to do is start big picture, and then we can get a little bit more focus, especially in the work that you do, to tell us when we talk about big picture, AI, artificial intelligence, what does that mean to you?
Ooh, it's a big topic. I mean, the idea of AI has been around since the 1940s, so it's not a new idea at all. But it's only in the last couple of years with the rise of generative AI, Gen AI, as we say, that people have really become captivated with the possibility of this technology. But it really is built on a long history of tech. So the models that probably we are most familiar with, but maybe don't realize it in AI, are machine learning models. So when you use Google Maps, when you use Apple Photos, that's machine learning. It's working in the background to try to understand data and present it in a way that makes sense to us. But what Gen AI did that changed the game was it created a new interface between us and machines. And this is part of a long trend that's happened over 40, 50 years, 60 years. We had punch cards in the old days. And then we had like green screens. I think some people at airports still use those things. And then we got graphical user interfaces like the Mac. And then we got mobile. And, the internet's at our fingertips at all times now. So, all these things were interface changes that allowed us to access and use information in more frictionless ways. And now we have a machine that we can just talk to in our own language. We don't even have to program. Like, the programming is English, and it's called prompting. And it's so accessible. So I think the big picture is that people are waking up to the power and the possibility of this direct connection to machines, this direct connection to basically limitless information and knowledge in an interface that is our own natural interface. And that's pretty mind-blowing.
So tell me, now you've given a great explanation of the history of generative AI. Tell me your story. How did you get into this?
Oh boy, well, I'm 53, so that's 175 in tech years. So I've been around for a long time. I started my career really at the dawn of, the web in 1996 and was building websites before there really were websites, and have been building digital products and digital tools that whole time. So this is really the kind of like the evolution of all that work. A few years ago, I left the company that I was working for, which was an online business school called Section. And at the end of my tenure there, we were investigating using AI to streamline the course production process and all parts of it, right? I left that company and started doing freelance product strategy consulting, and all anybody wanted to talk about was AI. And so I was like, wow, I really better bone up on this. And so I spent like 6 months of being unemployed and just learning, trying things, building things, learning all the strategies, high and low. And at the end of the 6 months, I was kind of smart about it. I hate to brag, but I mean, but the fact of the matter is there just wasn't that much information. So it wasn't that hard to get to know it. And I also found that not everybody was hip to this. And so that differential in knowledge allowed me to offer my, services as a consultant. And soon I quickly became overwhelmed with people wanting to hire me. And so that's when I co-founded Machine and Partners with Greg Shove and Nitin Khanna, who is our CTO. So, we saw that there was the problem wasn't that people didn't know how to build AI tools, because there is a lot of great tooling. There are libraries that developers can use to get running really quickly with AI. Mm-hmm. The problem was that most companies didn't know what to build. What was a smart thing to build? It's easy to build toys. It's easy to get lost in prototypes. It's very difficult to find something that actually delivers value using this technology, value to the business. What is your business goal, and how do you make choices that can, where you can build something that's going to make a difference?
Well, that's fascinating, because I think that in many ways our businesses are very similar, from the standpoint that you're looking at opportunities to solve problems for people and identifying what their needs are, and then helping them adopt a path where AI can help them with the solution. In our world, it's understanding their goals and objectives for either retirement or growth, and then finding the right products or investment strategies that'll get them there. And I think that's fascinating. Plus, your explanation of AI and just that communication, the openness of communication, kind of walking through that evolution is so big. I always think of instances where people may have a lot of questions about AI and they don't even know that they're using it day to day, every day. And probably the closest I can think of, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is sitting right in the room, and that is, Alexa. Asking Alexa a question, and she's probably going to pipe up right now. I don't know, she's a little quiet. But to say, hey, Alexa, what's the weather like outside? And then you get a response. And I never really think about the fact that I'm actually communicating. There it is. There she goes, right? So this is what I'm talking about, is just that interface is what you're talking about in communicating with these systems that provide us information.
Yeah, and Alexa is not LLM powered, right? She's the last generation of AI, which is called natural language processing, NLP. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the old school version where they were really trying to force it to work. And, Watson winning on Jeopardy and Big Blue beating Kasparov in chess. These were sort of the pinnacles of that era of technology. And now you've got LLMs, large language models. The next version of Alexa will be powered by an LLM, as will Siri. And the conversations you'll be able to have with Alexa and Siri will be much more sophisticated. And if we want to start talking about the future, which is very exciting, they will be agentic. So agents are the future. Everyone is talking about it right now. We can get into that later if you want to dive into what the future is going to look like. And it's going to be weird.
Well, I'm curious if that had some, because the other day, and I know Kim and I have been using Duolingo, and I'm trying to learn a little bit more Italian, as you are, Kim. Mm-hmm. And the other day there was this exercise where I pushed the button, and it was allowing me to have a conversation with this imaginary person, but in Italian. And I could tell that it was actually tracking the chat back and forth, and it was responsive to whatever I said in Italian, responding back to me, and it would continue the conversation. And I thought, this is amazing, because it's like a simulated conversation in a foreign language with a machine or so. And I was just blown away. I don't know if you've experienced that yet.
I haven't. I don't know if I know that much Italian, though, to experience.
Oh, I was stuck, because it was like now I was actually having a conversation.
Yeah,
it wasn't just repeating stuff. It was actually a simulation of talking to an Italian person. It was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the potential there is huge, but that's exactly what I'm talking about with the interface being our own language. And, as far as the LLM is concerned, it doesn't know the difference between Italian and English. Every language is just a language, just a series of tokens that it's parsing, including computer programming languages. And that's why, all these programmers are worried about AI taking over their jobs, because, it can kind of speak Python. It can speak C++ or whatever.
I spoke a little BASIC back in my day, so that was about it.
BASIC.
Yeah, it'll take me back to my Commodore 64 days.
That's about my extent of my programming, too.
Old school.
20, go to 10.
Exactly. Yeah. Recording on a cassette tape. Well, this is exciting. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the work that you do, because you do focus on enterprises, and I think that on the consulting side, it sounds like you're pretty busy. And one of the things in looking at the website was that you are really helping people accelerate this adoption of AI. So when you meet with clients, what are some of the main concerns?
Yeah, I think right now what companies are seeing is from various studies and from information they're gathering from other leaders, they're realizing that AI has the potential to drive productivity in their teams. There's a lot of hype out there. And so this is actually something I'm working against. Like, the hype doesn't help. There are some people who are running around saying, oh, it's going to steal our jobs. It's going to make everything oblivious or obsolete. But the fact is that this is still a pretty immature technology. That being said, there are definitely use cases where it can improve our productivity as individuals and as teams. So you see people who adopt ChatGPT, and I think you guys have probably played with ChatGPT and have seen the power of it. People who tend to start using it and using it regularly start to see pretty pronounced productivity increases. So what does that look like at an organizational level if you can take 1,000 people and get them to have a 20% upgrade in productivity? I mean, this is absurd levels of productivity increases. And so it's so tasty, it's so desirable that every leader wants to see, can we do that? And then on the other side is, is there something core to the business? Is there something in our product or our services that can be enhanced or transformed with AI? And so they want to experiment and get good information around, what would be the right use case given the technology. They know their business, they know their product. We know AI, we know the potential and the technology, and we also know a lot about, how to drive adoption within an organization. So typically we sort of come in and we say there's a high-low approach. The high approach is to sort of get together a team of, your best people and say, what can we do for this product? And start really strategizing, experimenting, and trying to figure out where's the value that we can extract from AI in our product. And the low level is to just get it deployed to everybody, come up with an AI policy that makes sense for your organization, make sure everybody knows that policy, make sure everyone gets a little bit of training on how to use something like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude, and then let them start to be the leaders in where the use cases are found and where productivity can be gained.
We were just on a call with our broker-dealer sort of complaining about technology and how to access information on our website because we've just always had issues with it. And they brought in 6 tech people, and a couple of them had been just hired from AI, and it was really interesting to hear what they had to do to fix the situation. Because in our business, there is so much data, there's so much information that we have to know and we have to explain to people in technical terms and, IRS regulations, contributions, all of that when a broker-dealer hires people to answer questions for us so that we can answer them for our clients, it's really tough to get somebody that can say the right thing always. And, constantly we're challenging them. I don't think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
Go up a level. And now with this whole AI situation, it's like, oh no, we could have that information. I don't think I would have to call in anymore because I could ask the question and find the data right there. It's just amazing. I mean, I like Copilot. I think it's a little bit more secure. But the fact that you used to ask a question on Google or whatever your SEO is, and then read a bunch of articles to figure out, to piece it together. The fact that it just comes out there and gives you an outline is
it's amazing.
So much better.
Yeah. There's so if you look at the way that these things are built, they're really like compression engines for all of human knowledge. So they're trained up to a certain point. I think a lot of people don't realize this, but some people think that when they type into ChatGPT questions and they upload documents, that stuff goes into its training data, but it doesn't. That stuff is, that's yours. The AI is not trained on that information. They do use your interactions, depending on what your settings and stuff, to improve the responses that it gives back, but the data does not go into the training corpus. Okay, that being said, here's this, all of everything we've ever felt, like everything we've ever experienced in the world as human beings is in this training data. Like what it's like to smell a rose, what it's like to fall in love, what it's like to be at war, you know, what beautiful poetry is, what amazing art looks like. So we've taken our experience of the world, which is multimodal, and we've projected it onto text and then given it to this computer, right? And put it in this algorithm. And then we then get to get that information back. The problem is it's so much information that the AI doesn't know. It's not a thinking machine. It doesn't have logic. It doesn't have a sense of right or wrong. All it has is what's in the text. And what surprised us as human beings in developing this technology was how much information is in that text. It's loaded with metadata, essentially. So there is logic implicit in our text. There is feelings and emotion implicit in our text. There's reasoning implicit in the text, but it's not perfect. So, and there's a lot of information. So if you ask a question, let's say about the tax code, the AI will respond with probably something close, but it has 25 years of tax code in its corpus. So it could easily get confused around, you know, which tax code are you talking about, like, or even which country, right? So the trick oftentimes of these things is narrowing down the information to the part that really matters and giving it a sense of like priority for that response.
And I think that provides some relief for some people, quite honestly, when you start thinking about it, because it would be my guess that based on that, and that it could pick up the data and the text and the information, but what it may not be able to do is interpret intent or sarcasm or just the way people talk to each other. So what we consider our natural language builds with it so much of the body language and nuance and tone and inflection that if you're only reading on text, you can't really pick up on all those cues that are almost as important as the message. Because I could say to someone, let's say in a face-to-face conversation, I love you, and at the same time I'm pushing them away, you know, or I'm not looking them in the eye. And so if you were only reading the text, you'd say, oh, this person loves it. But every other action outside of the words are showing a different emotion. And so I think that might provide some relief from people in thinking, you know, will it fully replace humans? And say, you know, in some ways, I don't know that it will. There are certain things it does really well and other things that it doesn't do so well that is probably better for a human to do. In which case, I think the approach we should take is how does this enhance our human capital than really thinking about replacing, you know, human capital.
Because I was just going to solve the government deficit problem.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, you were on the
mean, I was just like thinking about this and I'm going, we don't need so many IRS agents and we don't need this and we don't, you know, the DMV. How easy could it be if we could just have less people there?
Well, I think that's actually true to a certain extent. Like, so even in the projects that we're working on right now, I would say maybe like a meta trend of all of these things is that many people act as access agents to information, and they play both sides, right? So I have all this information that you don't have, and so I'm going to charge you money to get access to that information in a way that is relevant to you. There's two sides to that coin. Number one is the access gate saying, I'm not going to give you access, right? Or maybe there's just so much information that you don't know where to go, right? Like, so there could be other barriers, but essentially being like, you know, a barrier. And there's a tax that you have to pay me to get that information. The other side, though, well, that's kind of a negative side maybe. And then the positive side is wisdom. So because I know this information so well, because I work with so many people, I can point you in the right direction. I can help you make good choices. And I think the first thing is being threatened by AI for sure. The second thing still isn't. And I don't think that's ever going to go away, because we humans in the world, you know, understand the world in a multimodal, sophisticated, larger way with logic and reasoning that the AIs, it's hard for me to imagine them like ever having.
And then you also say, because I get defensive, I start thinking about our industry, but I think it's the tax you pay or the time you have to take to do it yourself. And I mean, it's, we always say, do you have the time, inclination, knowledge, or know-how to do this yourself?
Yeah, it's transformation. So it's happened before, right? Travel agents, remember? There used to be travel agents. Travel agents are kind of coming back.
Yeah.
I have heard that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because the fact is we have a desire to express the trip we want to take, and we want someone who has knowledge and wisdom and, this bigger understanding of the world and us to be able to put together a trip. So there's lots of talk of like, oh, AI can make an amazing trip for you. No doubt. AI can put together an itinerary. AI knows about all the restaurants in Rome. But AI doesn't know like you in this intimate way. It doesn't read your signs like you said. It doesn't really get the gist of like maybe the kind of trip you're going to take. And so the role of a travel agent as a curator, a carer, an interpreter, a visionary, like all that stuff will not be replaced by AI, but maybe the travel agent will just talk into a computer and have the whole itinerary built for you, because that's just a pain in the ass.
It will make the travel agent more productive.
Absolutely. And they can have twice as many clients. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something we notice in this industry as well. I mean, AI will allow us to do our job better, so we can spend more time getting to know our client and their needs, and let all the technical stuff that has to be done behind the scenes.
Has it happened already where your clients are coming to you and saying, well, I already asked ChatGPT and ChatGPT told me I should do my financial planning like this? Because that's coming.
Yeah. No, we haven't had that. I mean, I think in general, like, again, the people that come to us are the ones that really don't want to be reading all that stuff. They want to enjoy life.
Yeah, I see us being more like the travel agent. And fulfilling that role and understanding the client's needs when it comes back to, recognizing what their goals are in retirement and the kind of lifestyle they want to lead. And then maybe we turn around and we use AI to help us craft what that portfolio strategy looks like and the specific investments that'll help on a historical basis, let's say, meet that specific need for income or the monies to live that lifestyle. But part of that is really that extraction. And I do think that over time, there is that machine learning that we talked about. For me, the area that I'm very fascinated when it comes to this conversation is on the predictive analytics side, on the side where now, let's just say, having a library of data as it relates to working with a client for a number of years, for it to say, at the latest meeting, based on this information that we captured from the meeting, we think that XYZ would be a good strategy, or XYZ, would be a good investment, where the AI is now helping us. It's not doing it for us, but it's helping us in evaluating, okay, that would be a good idea. That would be a strategy. There is currently like tax planning software, which is outstanding, where you can just upload the PDF and it just completely goes through the review, and then it comes back with suggestions, for changes to deductions you missed that you could have taken, strategies to invest in, let's say, your IRA, or maybe doing a Roth conversion, and that will save you X number of dollars. And it's a conclusion that it's likely that us or a tax planner or someone who does that would eventually have arrived on their own. But this thing turns it around in seconds.
Yep.
So now, but you still need somebody to deliver that and explain it to the client, and so I think that what we're really talking about is this, like, filling that role as being an interpreter, right? That is bridging the two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law recently surprisingly had to leave his house. He had to move into independent living, so it was an unexpected thing. Mm-hmm. And my wife was caught completely off guard. She needed a lot of help to figure out, like, oh gosh, like, what do we do with this house, and irrevocable trusts, and all the things that go into this, like, estate planning thing that really we just weren't expecting it to go this way, so we weren't planning for that. of course, me being me, I went on ChatGPT and I started asking it to do all this stuff, right? And it's just endless, like the medical benefits, Medicare, and all this stuff. Like just looking into all these things, and ChatGPT had confident answers. It gave me all kinds of information.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly any of it was right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was absolutely it was bonkers. And so yeah, we relied on people who knew these worlds really well, who could mesh together really complicated needs into a very specific and customized, personalized plan for us, and that was worth its weight in gold, So I think that that's just something that's going to continue to be needed for everyone.
Okay, I'm really curious, Ed, about enterprise level use of AI and your consulting work with them, because we keep hearing, I'm listening to a lot of people talk about NVIDIA and, and the critics out there that are saying there is a lot of hype and that businesses may be putting a lot of money into infrastructure without getting an ROI anytime soon. So what do you think about that? And how should we be thinking about it as we look at AI investments?
I'm the last person that will ever try to predict the future, especially when it comes to where you should put your money. So take all this with a grain of salt. But I think what we've seen over the last, let's say, 10 years, that's where this is coming from. We had the internet boom. We had mobile. A lot of people made a lot of money off of that. Then Silicon Valley was kind of hunting for what's the next big thing? Crypto, blockchain. That's what it was going to be. And lots of money got poured into that, and it all kind of went poof. Like I have not seen, I'm not banking at a crypto bank. I've got maybe a little bit of crypto, but just for kicks. We're not all using blockchain as our system of record for anything, right? Then came AR. Facebook renamed themselves to Meta because the metaverse was going to be so big, and we were all going to be wearing goggles and have Google Glass and all that stuff. Remember? It was huge, right? Tons of money poured into that world. I'm talking billions of dollars, and nothing happened. Then Gen AI hit, and the VCs were so excited. The Silicon Valley was so excited. Look at the race between Google, Facebook, OpenAI, Microsoft. These guys went all in. I mean, so much money is being poured into this. So, of course, the hype was huge because we've got our thing now. We've got our thing that we're all going to make a bunch of money off of, right?
That's fun.
It just was moving the hype moved a little faster than the technology. So as someone who's working with it every day and building stuff, I know that it's actually really hard to make these tools deliver valuable outcomes. It's not impossible. I'm the most excited as anybody else out there about making this happen. I see the kinds of things we can do. No doubt in my mind that this is going to be huge and transformational. So 100%, I'm investing long-term in AI and AI stocks. But I just think that the short term, we still have a lot of learning to do on to how to make these things work.
Is it similar to the whole, back in the day, the dot-coms came and went belly up? And I mean, we do this with everything, as you just said, crypto. We love to hype something and then deflate it. And I mean, that's just the natural tendency of people because we all love, there are two emotions that rule in money. It's fear and greed. And greed all over AI, right? And so I just wonder, back then we used to say, we didn't know which .coms were really going to make it, but we knew that we were going to forever be changed by internet commerce. I don't know one thing I don't do online.
Totally.
And so how is that how do you see that kind of similar situation with AI?
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to predict, what's going to happen here, I think back to the 90s, late 90s or early 2000s. There was a company called Cosmo.com. I don't know if you remember them. They were a delivery company, internet delivery. So you could order like pack of cigarettes or
I don't remember that.
you could order like a single thing of Haagen-Dazs and they would deliver it to your office in San Francisco. And, you know, you'd pay $4 for a $3 thing of Haagen-Dazs and you'd sit there going like, how on earth is this working out? Like, how is this business model working? You know, and they were like, well, we're going to scale. Don't worry about it. It's all, you know, .com, you know, hype. Obviously, they're out of business. However, now, full circle, we've got DoorDash and there's all these businesses that are delivering. Maybe they're going to go out of business too. I don't know. But, you know, they figured it out over time. It just takes time to figure out the business models and what works and how you make money doing this stuff. And that's where we are now. The infrastructure that we're using, and I think this is the key, the infrastructure that we're using right now and that we're building upon was built for the last generation of technology. So we're trying to wire AI into old stuff. Like APIs, those are built for humans. The next generation of APIs will be built for AI. And so a lot of the friction that's in there will go away. A lot of the mistakes that AI makes because it's trying to understand, what would a human do here? I don't know, will go away because we'll build our APIs directly for that technology.
Yeah, it's not unlike what I've seen, and it's really interesting because it really hasn't been around for too long, but I think the first uses of like Uber were 11 years ago or so, because I remember it was in and around South by Southwest in 2013, and people started really using and they were pushing this. And that whole idea of my whole life, I was taught not to get into a car with strangers, and now I'm actually actively looking for strangers to give me a ride to the airport. And what was most fascinating to me and is that when it came to like Uber and Lyft, when it first got started, the resistance that was being met, not necessarily by the users, but by the infrastructure, the airports that weren't making it easy for these drivers to pick them up, and the cab companies that were basically looking at this as a massive threat. But now, you know, here we are only 10 years, 11 years after the initial outlay of like an Uber and a Lyft. They are dedicated places within an airport here in San Jose, in Boston. And before in Boston, remember you had to walk a long way to get, now it's just right across from the terminal, baggage claim. They just basically said, you know what? We can't stop the technology. We can't stop the adoption. It's here. Let's just make it easy then. And now, you know, I can't imagine not using Uber and Lyft because I'm so used to using it. And then they've taken it to another level where now you can get like miles or hotel points, you know, so they're finding that secondary currency opportunity that's more of an incentive for its use. So I think that all new technology goes through these growing pains. But then once the adoption, and I think that that's the area that I'm really interested in in the clients that you work with, where they are in their adoption. It was still very early stages. Is it, you know, at what point do we reach a certain maturation where every company that does, you know, if a company doesn't have AI, they're going to be left behind?
Yeah, when we started Machine and Partners, what we saw was that most companies, the problem wasn't that they didn't know how to build something with AI, because like I said, there are all these great libraries. The tooling for developers to build with AI is really strong. So, and there's a million development shops out there. If you said, hey, I want to build an AI bot that does X, Y, and Z, they'd be like, no problem, we can build that thing, or we'll try. The problem that we saw was that companies didn't know what to build. They didn't know how to marry their business strategy with the technology, the existing technology, and what choices to make that would be wise for them. How hard should they go in on this? Should they be experimenting? Should they be throwing everything at it? Should they be going after their competitors? You know, what was the landscape looking like? All these questions, right? These are business questions, not technology questions. And so that's what we saw. And we said, well, we know the technology really well. So like, give us a chance to come in, learn about your business, and we'll help you make those decisions, knowing what we know. So we have like a couple strategies that we use to help companies identify opportunities with AI and score the value of those opportunities. So the first framework is called DO, and that stands for data, expertise, and workflow. So where's the data? Do you have data? It could be anything. It could be video, it could be text, it could be numbers and traditional sort of spreadsheets or whatever. Expertise is, do you have something locked in somebody's head where if that person left, you would be really bummed, right? And the last thing is workflow. Do you have a workflow that you can describe in any way? Is it pat enough that it's, you know, codifiable. And if you have those three conditions in your business, then you probably have a use case for AI. And depending on the size of the business and stuff, then that could tell you a lot. And then we do a scoring that's VVV framework. So that is viability, value, and velocity. So viability is how hard would this thing to be to build? And that could be difficult technically, or it could be culturally. Maybe like we did a project for an education company, and they just can't put an AI in front of kids. It's too open-ended, and you'd have to put a lot of guardrails on it. And so it's kind of culturally, it wasn't going to work. Or there could be something with the regulation in finance or something that makes it so you can't really do these things. So that's viability. Value is like, if you did build it, would it actually have a return on investment? So there's plenty of times, and this comes up a few times for us so far, where the sales team is like, yeah, I want my decks to be automated. I want them to be automatically made because I hate doing that by AI. And we're like, yeah, we could build that, but is it worth like $1 million for you to just build your own damn decks? You're a sales guy. It's your job. And then the last thing is velocity. Like, how long would it take to build it? Because if it's going to take a year, the world is moving too fast. AI is moving too fast. The landscape is changing too quickly for you to invest in 1 year of time on basically a bet. So we take those frameworks and we talk to the company, we learn their business, and then we sort of apply these things and say, okay, based on all this analysis, here are the 1 or 2 or 3 use cases that we think could move the needle for you. And then let's start talking about how we might develop those.
Wow.
It's really interesting because we are thinking a lot about continuity in our business and our practice and our company. And that is what has always scared me about hiring. Because we have a lot of data, we have a lot of expertise, and we have workflows. And I'm finally getting to the point where I would feel comfortable training because we have the tools to make somebody really successful.
Yeah.
Which weren't there like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, building a system, right?
Yeah.
Whether you have a technology or not is such a wonderful thing to do for a business.
Yeah.
Well, and especially if it's scalable, because that's been my focus in the last couple of years, is that we knew what we wanted to build, but would it scale? Like, could we handle if we were twice as big, and would it still look the same? And that's when we're pretty early adopters when it comes to technology and identifying the opportunities whereby it will translate into, this investment and the ROI. And sometimes that ROI isn't so much monetary as much as it's time, because time is a currency. And saying, let's use this time wisely, as Kim pointed out. If I don't have to sit there and take diligent notes, and I can be more focused on eye contact with the client, really being present in the meetings, let the AI take the notes,
Totally. And the experience you create for your clients when you're there and you're paying attention and they feel like they're being taken care of, that's something that an AI is never going to deliver.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this starts with education, which is one of the reasons why we're excited to have you on the podcast, is to talk about, kind of have a conversation around this. But I know based on your website that you do offer some workshops. So how are those workshops? What are they, and how are they going? How are they coming out? Are they...
Yeah, so it usually falls under 2 styles of workshops. So one style is more for the executive team. I think there's a lot of anxiety that executives have of being undereducated on this topic. They're responsible for making decisions about their company and what their company does, strategic decisions, and adopting a technology that's new like this feels like there's pressure to do it, but they don't know it well enough to kind of make an informed decision. So workshops for the executives are kind of a mini version of that analysis that I was just talking about. So part of it is getting them familiar with the tech, a little bit of background, understanding what it is, how it works, showing how it's deployed, and then having the teams work together to build some alignment around what their priorities are as a business and how they might use AI. So that's kind of the workshop, the sort of executive level workshop. And then we also do larger workshops that are really more about adoption. So like, let's take a large group of people and basically teach them how to use ChatGPT. Like a simple prompting framework goes a long way, right? Because I think what happens is people, they start playing with it. They've heard the hype. They're, oh, AI can do everything. My job is going away. I'm going to start playing with AI. And then I ask it a question. It gives me a dumb answer. And I'm like, this is stupid, right? This is the hype is totally bogus.
Okay, I won't quit my day job.
But then they learn how to prompt, right? And they learn how to use these tools effectively. And then the world changes, because then they're suddenly like, oh, wow, if I type the right thing in here, I can get much better results. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about prompting being programming. It's programming in the English language, but you still have to understand how to construct a good prompt to get good output. It's a garbage in, garbage out problem.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, I used it once. I was trying to have it draw me a picture for a presentation, and I was like, no,
you're not getting it.
Right.
You're not getting it.
Let me put some more information in.
Like,
Yeah, that is interesting.
When I was working at my online learning company, as I was leaving, we started training these avatars. So they're video versions of myself, because I was teaching these courses. And we used kind of maybe sort of the earliest version of these avatars that were coming out of 11 Labs and these other companies. They had that uncanny valley vibe. You trained them by standing there. You couldn't move. You couldn't move your arms. You had to look right at the camera. You had to say this really boring dialogue. And then the effect in the end was that they felt boring and stiff. But then a new generation of this technology came out. We use a company called HeyGen. It's amazing. You just film yourself being yourself. And sure enough, when you can put any dialogue into that thing, and there you are, and it looks like you. And every time I show my friends this stuff, they're amazed that it's not me. Like, they're like, wait, so when are you going to show me the avatar? No, this is the avatar. This is fake.
Yeah.
And I can make this thing say anything I want, and it looks just like me, and it acts like me, and it moves with its head and its eyes and its hands.
I love that.
It is really trippy.
It was that video I saw, was it the CEO of LinkedIn who had an interview with himself, but it was him interviewing his avatar.
Yeah.
It was insane. I mean, you almost couldn't tell the difference, although occasionally I'll see a video that is AI generated, and what's fascinating to me is how quickly people will look at it. It's almost like the blink, the Malcolm Gladwell, oh, that's AI, immediately.
Yeah.
An AI doctored image, an AI video. There's something about it.
I think in the Davos, the guy, the Prime Minister, Argentina, he came in and he did a presentation, and then they had an AI generative one in English or something.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really cool to watch.
Yeah, so that's why this company Section did this avatar, because it wasn't so much that they wanted to streamline the production process, although that was part of it. Like, if I make a mistake or I slip up or the tech changes, they don't have to go out and film a whole new episode of me in front of a camera. They just update the dialogue. But the big win was that they could deploy this product in India, Japan, Latin America, in every language possible. And there I am. It's really weird to look at myself speaking Japanese. My lips are moving perfectly to the Japanese, or Brazilian, or Portuguese or Spanish or whatever, right? Hindi.
Yeah.
It's really crazy, but it's pretty nice. And then for the user, it's a better experience than to have
absolutely.
the subtitles or even the lip sync, where it feels like I'm not engaging with them. So there are some big upsides, and we're like, 1 year, 2 years into this technology, and in 3 years, like everyone's fear about the deep fakes, that's legit. We're not going to be able to tell the difference between real and fake.
Wow.
Yeah, that's on the scary side, definitely. But on the positive side, one area that I'm excited about is, last time we spent some time in Europe, and the kids, they were actually the ones that showed me Google Translate. And so we would just point at a menu, and then it would kind of translate it into English. So I said, oh, that's what that means and such. But I think I saw a video, and I don't know if it was something that currently technology that exists or where it's going, where people were wearing like an earpiece and having a conversation with someone who's talking to them in a foreign language, and in real time it's doing the translation, so that you talking to someone who's, let's say, speaking Italian, you would hear in your earpiece in English what they're saying, and then you respond in English and they hear what, in Italian.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the implications from a language standpoint globally in our ability to not necessarily need a human interpreter, but in real time interpreting on the spot, how amazing that would be.
I know I use it for interpretation when I do things for church or something like that. They say, translate this to Spanish. And I just put it in Copilot, and then I review it just to make sure it sounds right.
Yeah.
And it saves me so much time.
And it's pretty good.
Yeah. But I don't want to have some translation thing. I want to learn.
You want to learn the language. No, you're old school.
I love languages. Don't tell me that. But for somebody else, that's great.
In a way, it's kind of cool because before this, the pressure was for everyone to learn the lingua franca, English. And so now if you don't need to learn English, you can really celebrate your own language, right? So now maybe we will combat this idea that languages are going away or getting diluted by a kind of universal language. If we can all just speak our own language and happily understand each other with this Star Trek technology, that's kind of cool.
Right.
Well, it's an exciting world. I mean, we got a lot of opportunity looking forward and, to the changes that are happening. And like I said, I think it is something that currently, evolves possibly at a much faster pace than things in the past, just because as people start adapting and using it and seeing the benefits, it'll become easier. And I am sure that you will have no challenges in finding, a lot of gainful employment as people are uncovering whether or not, it's a good fit for their enterprise.
Yeah, so tell us if our listeners are interested in your workshops or what you do in your consulting, where can they find you?
Yeah, my website is machineandpartners.com. We're pretty busy, like you said, but I'm always interested in new projects. We specialize really in kind of figuring out the hard stuff. So, if you just need an AI chatbot built, there's lots of people that can do that for you. But if you're looking at your business and you're thinking, how on earth are we going to integrate AI into this? Like, what we do is so specialized. That's the kind of place where we would be helpful.
Okay.
I also teach courses at Section still. So if you are interested in, adopting AI personally and you want to learn how to increase your personal productivity or learn how to prompt or learn how to apply AI for sales or marketing or finance, there's a lot of courses there that are pretty helpful, and I teach a few of them. So I always recommend for people to go there, and they're fun.
Excellent.
That's awesome. So we'll include those links in our show notes to the podcast. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team, to me, Victor at techrollfinancial.com. And we were really interested in what you thought of the program. And if you provide your feedback, as you know, one of the things that we love to do with this podcast is invite subject matter experts like Ed, who really know their subject deep and be able to share their knowledge and insights with all of you.
Absolutely.
So thank you
so
for coming
much.
out.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and I learned a lot myself from talking to you guys. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you're
All right.
welcome.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Tech Girl Financial Podcast. As always, you can find us on our social networks as well as our website. But we want to thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future guests, feel free to reach out. Just let us know. Send me an email. We provide those links also on our show notes. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. See you next time.
If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future shows, please send an email to Victor at techgirlfinancial.com or join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag AskTGF. We also encourage you to follow us on the Tech Girl Financial page on Facebook and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Tech Girl Financial and Cambridge Investment Research, Inc. are not affiliated companies.